Morning, girls. Just trying to find my my roll call list for this morning. Having a bit of trouble finding it. All right. I can't seem to find my roll call list. So for those of you who know you're meant to be here, I'll get you to ask questions at the end. All right. So I'm going to start off with a mini story for today's call. True story. Happened to myself. There's a really big difference, ladies, between tracking and weighing all of your food and tracking some of it and guesstimating other parts. There's a really big difference in calorie expenditure, in calorie intake coming in. Last week I was away with my family. I tracked all the food that I was eating at home, but obviously I was eating out with my family. And the difference in measurements and photos was pretty big, to the point where it was like close to nearly a kilo heavier. And I wish I had the photos on my computer. I'll see if I can pop them over. Just the difference in the photos was massive. And just like you girls, if I don't track my food to the T, body fat will come on, or we won't get the fat loss that we're looking for. In particular for those who are in a building phase. If you're in a building phase, ladies, you're already tipping the scale of body fat accumulation. Okay? If you're in a building phase, I believe it's even more important to be honoring your macros, to be sending them out where you are, where you're most active is where you're going to have most of your calories, okay? And you're going to taper it off as you get closer to bedtime, okay? Because we know that fat is way more calorie sensitive than muscle. We also know that eating too close to bedtime will disrupt deep sleep, right? And when deep sleep is disrupted, the deep sleep is where we get our natural production of human growth hormone, even as females. And that's where the part of the I guess our body, our lungs, our cardiovascular system, our muscular system, it gets worked on. Okay, if we're having really big meals close to dinner, that gets disrupted, and we're missing out on that lovely window of that opportunity for recovery. On the other side, with fat loss, right, we need to create a deficit. We need to give our body less calories than what it needs to stay weight stable. Okay, we need to break homeostasis. So if we are minimizing that opportunity, then we're not going to see the results that we want. Okay, you're working really hard in the gym. Most of you girls are working super hard in the gym, but we're not following through with the food. Investigate yourself, ladies, when you're successful, and investigate yourself when you're not. What are the qualities of the habits and behaviors that you exercise when you're being successful? Like 100% out of the times, when you girls nail your food, you get the result that you want. And you do that for 1 week. And then the following week, you choose not to do that. You choose to give yourself too much flexibility. And so we're going 1 step forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 1 step back. Make it as easy as you can for yourself. You want to minimize noise. You want to know that these macros are right for you. Then eat the same thing every day. Honestly, put together a meal plan, a day on a plate that is so tasty, it's yummy, it's palatable, it hits your macros, you hit your guidelines that are given to you, And you just repeat that over and over and over and over again for 1 week. Then on Sunday afternoon, you recreate a new meal plan and you eat that same thing for 7 days, right? Something that I spoke to Kat about yesterday was like, you have to earn the right to be flexible. Just like you have to earn the right to put the weight on the bar, right? If you put the bar on your back and you can't squat with your glutes below parallel, you're not putting another 40 kilos on there, right? You haven't earned that. It's the same thing with your macros. If you're new to tracking macros, as some of you girls are, going and trying to have something different every day is not going to give you the result you want. Okay? It's going to take you further away. Let's make things as easy as possible. We talk about picking the lowest hanging fruit. Create one meal plan to the guidelines that you're given. The food that you get to eat, that's the opportunity that you have, right? You get to, instead of me telling you you're going to eat fish every day, right? You're telling yourself, saying, what do I enjoy eating? And you're going to eat that, right? And then we can minimize any fluctuations because you're eating the same thing every day. And then eventually, when you get so good at tracking meals and you have time to prepare those meals, okay, because it's also time preparing meals, then you can have more flexibility, right? Then you've earned that, okay? And the process of tracking your food becomes a lot easier, right? And a lot more efficient, okay? So organization, a big thing. When in the time of your week are you going to be putting all your meals together and then also shopping and cooking the meals? I like to cook everything at once, stuff in the like whole heap of things in the oven, whole heap of things on the stove. If you've got a rice cooker, some rice cooking in the rice pot, okay? Literally like an octopus. Put timers on your phone so that you don't forget about anything. And you've got a whole heap of food ready to put into the fridge, okay, in big batches. And then you weigh it out as you need it. It makes things so much more efficient, okay? Now, because I don't have my roll call list, because it hasn't been sent to me, naughty, someone hasn't done their job. For those girls who know you're meant to be on this call, I want you girls to pop your hand up and jump in, and let's get into working around pre-planning and organizing your macros. I know I came in strong today. All right, Julianne. Where'd you go? There you are. Hold on.
There we go. Hi. I was tagged, so I'm guessing I have to be here.
Yes.
But I was going to show up anyway because I learn something each time I jump on these calls.
Yeah.
Basically, well, I don't know. I feel like I am following my macros and I am tracking everything. So I'm not entirely sure why I was tagged for this one.
Because you gave yourself less than 5. You gave yourself.
Okay. All right.
So when you give yourselves a 4, automatically we get notified and it tags you to be on these calls.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I didn't even realize it. Okay. That probably would have been because I didn't exactly like my food choices I chose for that week. I'm normally a lot stricter and I feel like I was a little bit more flexible. That's probably why I didn't rate myself.
Okay.
The best.
This is the thing. It's not about eating strict food.
Yeah.
We're not strict in the way that it's, I'm going to put inverted commas, clean eating.
Yeah.
Right? We want to move away from that. But we are strict in the way that we stick within our guidelines. Like that is the cutoff point. So yes. If you're flexible in terms of your food choices, that's totally fine. As long as it stays within your macro requirements. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we make the most out of your nutrition? Like, can we improve the diet? Well, without me looking at it, I won't be able to know, but you're more than welcome to send it through and I can give you some feedback. Is it, are we getting enough fruits and vegetables in, good quality proteins, drinking enough water, even structuring how you're structuring your food? Can we make some improvements in that? Possibly, yes or no. If you want to send me through your screenshots into Mighty Networks, you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I can. Well, every time I do check-in, it doesn't matter how many times I try to do it, the entries for MyFitnessPal just will not go through into nutrition. Like, I followed all the steps of Kat's video. I don't know if it's because I'm doing it through my phone, but it won't load at all. Like, it freezes, then it just resets again, and it's the most frustrating thing. But I put my entries up and tag elite and daily macros, I think it is each time of the entries of what I'm eating. But yeah, I think I definitely need to have a look at what I'm eating and maybe find something different. I think that's what I'm getting frustrated with, is like I'm now eating stuff, like going for stuff that I haven't wanted in so long. And I feel really frustrated from it because I'm pretty normally, like, I'm strict with myself. So I follow a plan and everything like that. And I don't know if it's just because of being on super low macros where my body's just like, I've fucking had enough. But yeah, I feel like I definitely need to look at some new choices.
Yeah, and look, this is a really important point. Okay, so when we become strict with our choices, we always want the foods that we haven't had. This is where, like, if you have been tracking macros for a long time, you have enough knowledge, right, to put in those foods, get more variety in there. Like, the reason I say eat the same thing every day is for people that are time poor and people that are being too flexible with their macros and they're not tracking properly. They don't know how to track properly, right? And there's too much guesstimating. I can eat different things every single day if I choose to, because I know how to track macros. I know how to weigh everything. I know my entries.
Yeah.
For you, Julianne, you've been tracking macros long enough. Get some variety in there so that you don't, again, it's that guilt of, reaching for things that you don't normally eat. Why? Because you told yourself you can't. Why? There's no food that's off limit, ladies, unless you have an intolerance to. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's, can you shift and make those foods, get those foods in without it sacrificing your fruits and your veggies? That's the most important thing. Okay? So without sacrifice of good quality nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, Julianne?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Julianne.
Thank you.
Okay. Kimberly, what about things you don't weigh, like just rubbing some butter on a pan and putting food? Okay. That butter has calories in it. So this is what I do, Kimberly. So you get the butter stick, because butter under eggs is so nice. Get the butter stick. You weigh the butter stick first. It's going to say, let's say 50 grams. You rub it on the pan, right? Some's going to melt off. You put it back onto the thing, and it's going to say 47 grams. You've got 3 grams of butter. Okay. Right. So all of these things, all these little things accumulate. Okay. Any extra oils and things that you add onto it, like, everything has a calorie. And if we're not adding those extra things in over time, what we think is, just a couple of calories here, adds up over time. Now, if you're not getting the fat loss that you're reaching for, okay, then you know that 500 calorie deficit has not become a 500 calorie deficit over the week. It's become 350. Does that make sense? So literally, I wrote something this morning. Investigate yourself when you're successful. Investigate yourself when you're not. Okay. What are the things that you can tighten up on? And for most of it, it's our food. Pre-planning. Literally, pre-planning and weighing our food. Something I did when I went to my mum and dad's, I went there last night, and I've been hungry lately. So I pre-portioned all of my pre-made meals and brought it to my mum's house, so I couldn't overeat, so I couldn't eat more. Okay, I was like, I'm noticing I'm quite hungry. and I don't want to eat more than what I'm meant to be eating. So I'm going to be really strict and I'm going to portion all out. I'm going to bring it with me. Okay. Rather than remaking it, because I do this thing when I when I make rice and it's so big and fluffy and I've got so much there, I just want to eat the entire bowl. So I didn't bring the entire bowl with me. Otherwise I would have eaten the whole thing. Okay. So, you know, it's knowing yourself, investigate yourself. Okay. What's your environment like, ladies? Is your kitchen really dirty? I think I spoke about this last week. If your kitchen looks like a shit fight, how do you really want to go in there? Not really. Clean the environment, create space in there, right? Everyone feels good when there's space, right? Rather than being decluttered. Your work environment, you're feeling like you're not focused. Move the furniture around. Give it a little zhuzh. I did this last week. I took out a whole piece of lounge and took all the clothes that were somehow managed to make it to my lounge, off the lounge into the bedroom. And what do you know? Space is clear. So I'm just going to tell my dog to shush. Space is clear, productivity increased. Environment's important. Where you spend your time, who you're talking to is important. How much time you're setting aside for the things that you are prioritizing or should be prioritizing, or what are you not prioritizing? How do we make a system feel effortless? Allocate days that are your preparation days. Allocate days and times that are your meal prep times. Like, make it, and that is its place in your week. Just like we all tend to, like, people have ciggy breaks at a certain time every day, or people have coffee breaks at a certain time of a day. You're going to have preparation time. Just like it's your time to train. That's your time to train. No one should mess with that. All right. So it's just, we want to make this system as effortless and also as enjoyable as possible. Okay. Everything that we eat has a calorie. Okay. And another thing that I do, ladies, I don't know if you girls are pickers, but I'm sure at some point you have been, or you get really hungry and you're making dinner and it's like, is that if there's something's already prepped, like rice, as an example, always. And I meant to be eating 200 grams of rice. I put the rice out in a bowl. I put it on the scale. I weigh out my rice and I pick at that instead of picking at the massive bowl over here and not weighing it. Okay. So it just means I'm stealing it away from dinner, but I'm not overeating my carbs or my calories, especially when it's at the end of the day, right? Because you can't change anything because you've eaten everything already. Okay. So if you're a picker at night, or you're prepping meals, I always used to do this when I was making the ratatouille. I loved eating the raw capsicum. So I'd buy an entire extra capsicum that I knew I was going to eat. I'd weigh it and I'd cut it up and I'd pick at that capsicum. So I didn't eat the capsicum that was meant to go in the ratatouille. Okay. And that capsicum was in my macros. So it's like little tricks like that. If you know there's a habit that you're not changing, right, then create a strategy around it so that it doesn't disrupt everything else that you're doing. Okay. Okay. So you've been struggling with accepting carbs again since you were sick for 2 weeks. You like the weight loss and worried of gaining weight with the carbs given. So carbs don't make you put fat on. Carbs don't make you gain weight. What makes you gain weight is being in a calorie surplus. And that can come from eating too much protein. That can come from any macronutrient. It's just calories, right? Protein, fat, and carbs, they're all energies. Fat comes with the most amount of energy per gram. But all macronutrients serve their purpose and their place in our diet. What makes someone gain fat is eating too much energy, regardless of where it comes from. What makes someone lose weight or lose weight, okay, is eating less energy than what their body needs to stay weight stable. Now, we can get quality weight, which is fat loss, or we can get weight loss. right? And if we want fat loss, we need to make sure we're eating the right amount of protein to preserve our lean muscle tissue. Okay, just a little bit off. What happens is when we reintroduce carbohydrates, or we eat more carbohydrates than what we previously eaten before, is that when we eat carbohydrates, the body breaks them down into monosaccharides, and they can get converted into glucose in the liver. Then the liver sends glucose to the brain and to the muscle to be used as energy. But with every gram of glucose that gets stored, water gets stored with it. So therefore, let's say you eat an extra, you eat 400 grams of rice over the day. That 400 grams of rice is going to have water and salt and sodium that's also in that 400 grams, which means that to the body, it's going to be 800 grams because of the water. So in terms of weight, so if you ate, for anyone that I increase their carbohydrates for a lot of the girls, they step on the scales and their weight is up because of the water retention that gets held in the muscle with the carbohydrates, okay? Because a healthy muscle has water in it, is a hydrated cell. And this is where creatine plays a really big part in intramuscular hydration, okay? And it helps to produce more ATP in the muscle, okay? And also improves recovery. So biologically, when we eat carbohydrates, the body doesn't turn into fat, okay? Remember I spoke about, I don't know if some of you guys on the call yesterday, I spoke about, triglycerides, okay? And triglycerides are like a type of fat or lipid that's found in our blood, okay? And when we eat, right, our body converts any of the calories it doesn't use right away into triglycerides. And that gets stored in fat cells. Now that can come from any macronutrient. The thing about carbohydrates is it's the quickest source of energy, and our body will do whatever it can to use it. Okay, it is our preferred energy source, especially when we're active. Okay, so some girls here have fat phobia, and some girls here have carbohydrate phobia. No one has a protein phobia, but I promise you, Kimberly, I had both of those phobias at some point in my life. In particular, actually, carbohydrates. However, you're exercising, okay? We actually underestimate how much carbohydrates our bodies can tolerate. The higher feeding days actually are great for lowering cortisol because carbohydrate has a really great effect on cortisol. It actually helps lower it. Okay. So even if you increase your carbohydrates, you'll be surprised at actually how little extra calories they are. But they're not there for you to gain weight. And the thing is, you weren't eating much, right? So the weight loss was, you would have got a lot of water weight that would have been lost. Okay, you wouldn't have had any glycogen store in the muscle because you weren't exercising. Okay, and so you're going to feel a lot smaller. Now, when you start to exercise again, the muscles start to pump up, and you're going to, like I said, store water and carbohydrate in the muscle. Now, water and carbohydrate that gets stored in the muscle is considered lean muscle tissue. It is considered to be a part of your lean muscle tissue. So when you get a DEXA scan, okay, so a DEXA scan scans your body and it gives you an estimate of your muscle to fat, but it can absolutely tell you your bone mass. So the best reading of it is bone mass, bone density, and then it guesstimates the remaining fat to muscle ratio. Now, how it measures your muscle is actually determined by how much glycogen is in that muscle at that very present moment. So if you're in a building phase and you're just, you're full of glycogen, you're eating 300, 400 grams of carbs a day, when you go and get a DEXA scan, you are glycogen, you are full of glycogen, right? You're topped out. So the reading of muscle mass is going to be really high. But if you're in a building a fat loss phase, okay, and you've been on low carbs for 5 days, and you're at your last day, your last low day before you get a high day, and you go and get a DEXA scan, you're going to get a lower reading of muscle mass because you're not glycogen topped out. You've got less glycogen and water stored in the muscle because you're depleted from being in low calories and low carbohydrate availability from the week. Now, say you got that scan on Friday and then you had 2 high days and you didn't exercise on Saturday and Sunday and you had your 2 high days. So you become topped out in glycogen. You haven't gone and exercised and depleted it. And then you get a new DEXA scan on Monday. You could have a completely different body fat percentage reading due to Monday's reading of muscle mass being full of glycogen and water, which means it's going to give them a higher reading of muscle mass than it did Friday, which means there's going to be a different body fat percentage on Monday. Does that make sense with everyone? I went off a massive tangent, but I'm just trying to explain to you, carbohydrates are not bad, okay? But in saying that, Kimberly, like, you know, I've been there, many girls have been there, and this is just something that we work through, right? So the history of carbohydrates in the fitness industry for a long time had a bad rap, and at some point, there was a period where fat became the enemy, right? There's all these people in particular, like these celebrities, and I mean, the US media is so hectic, and the US celebrity bloody media freaking family is just crazy. I can't go to the States without feeling like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. What are people doing? So it's actually really understandable that you feel this way. We whatever we expose ourselves to regularly is what we believe or we become. So if you're getting information all the freaking time through the TV, magazines that you see in the stand, Instagram, wherever you spend your time with whatever medium that you're looking at, and they're telling you this thing over and over and over again, you start to question or you start to believe that because you don't know another way, but everyone else is doing it in a way. This is what's so confusing for people, wanting to lose weight or wanting to improve their lifestyle. The fitness industry is not health. This is my beef with it. The fitness industry is not health. If you look at the fitness industry or what we see, it's, for a lot of us, I don't know about anyone else, but my social media for sure is, I say it all the time, steroid use and plastic surgery and dieting fads. I'm like, this is not health. This is the opposite to what I see as health. What is health? Healthy is not eliminating food groups. Health is having a balanced diet between protein, fat, and carbohydrates. It also an enjoyment of food that we enjoy eating, and 80% of our food coming from wholesome, unprocessed foods. So foods in its most purest form. That's healthy. Getting, foods that come from quality farmers or ethically sourced farms. How often can we get our hands on that without it costing us an arm and a leg? It's actually outrageous. So it can be really, really, really confusing and also hard to get that balance and know that what we're doing is the right thing. So Kimberly, your thought or your experience is really valid. Okay, but we're going to work on kind of shifting that so that you can look at protein, fat, and carbohydrates and be like, there's no bias between them, and there's no emotional attachment to them. That's what we work towards. There's a freedom in that. And then you get to, 1, get your goal, and 2, really enjoy the food that you're eating without feeling guilt or shame or even overeating. Yeah, Kimberly?
What about those people or rumors where they say, oh, if you just reduce the salt intake, that would help you also lose weight, or the sugars in different foods to help you lose weight?
Yeah. The reason, like, so if you eat less salt, your body will retain less water. However, salt helps the body balance electrolytes. Salt is really important for the body. It helps with contraction. It actually helps pull carbohydrates to the muscle. So when people cut out sodium and when people cut out salt, their ability to contract their muscle dampens. Their ability for their cells to hold onto water becomes less. Now, what does that do for performance? A 10% drop in dehydration has a huge impact on performance. If we look at packaged sodium, when you're like, for a lot of these, and everything's actually contextual. So if you're eating a diet that's pretty much all packaged food, it's going to be freaking high in sodium. So if you took out all the package, if they said, okay, cut salt, you're gonna go, oh, well, fuck this, sorry, shivers, there's sodium in all these foods that I mean, they took that out. What's going to happen to your diet? You're going to have to replace it with other foods that aren't high in sodium. So what's going to happen to your weight loss? Well, the calories are going to be exchanged because you're not eating high density food that's got preservatives and salt and packaged. You're going to take it for wholesome unprocessed foods. So what's going to happen in terms of calorie intake? It's going to drop, it's going to change. But in terms of cutting out salt and sodium for fat loss, if you've got a normal healthy diet where you're eating wholesome unprocessed foods, it actually doesn't make sense, nor will it favor fat loss or performance. Okay, because you'll dampen the ability for your muscles to contract. Then in terms of sugars out of the food, again, contextual. If you are eating a diet that's high in sugar, like again, high processed foods, I'm going to say high processed foods, and you take that out and you replace that with foods that are not are not processed and have less sugar in them, what's going to happen to the calories? Mostly, calories are going to be less. You have to eat your body weight in sugar. Okay, that's 60 kilos of sugar for it to be harmful. Now, no one's doing that here. And also, no one here is eating a diet that's high in sugar, because if you are, you're not following my guidelines. Right? Having a little bit of sugar, like I have maybe 2 or 3 coffees a day. I have sugar in all of those coffees. If you're exercising, okay, and you're eating less than what your body needs, sugar is not going to do anything bad to you. Okay, you're in a calorie deficit. That is the number one thing for fat loss. I laugh about this because I have friends, Kimberly, they'll be like, Hattie, I've got to lose weight by this time. What do I do? And I'm like, they're like, what should I cut out? I'm like, eat less. Just eat less. They're like, what? I'm like, the most powerful tool for fat loss is eating less than what our body needs. That is the most powerful tool for fat loss. I don't know why everyone wants to make it so much harder. Everyone loves eating carbohydrates. Correct me if I'm wrong, but why would you cut that out if you love eating it? Just eat less of it. You know, instead of having a main bowl of pasta, have an entree size of, like, even if you're someone that doesn't weigh your food, okay, let's say this, someone doesn't weigh their food, they eat a big bowl of pasta. You know what? Let's take half that pasta and put in that small bowl. If they did that every day, they're going to lose weight because they're eating 300 calories less a day. If that's the only thing they changed and they got fat loss, why would you change anything else? It's crazy, right? So everyone's looking at, well, what's the hardest? It's like, what's hardest thing. It was, hello, am I back?
Yes, I can hear you.
Am I back? Am I back?
I could hear you, but I don't see you.
You're gone again.
I don't know where it cut me off from. I'm not sure if I'm back or not. My internet, I don't know what's on my internet.